Welcome to Post Whatever with Ken Nishikawa. A few episodes back, one that was entitled Would You Kamikaze?, I had a go at debunking the myth of patriotism, which I happen to believe is the single greatest enabler of so-called collateral damage, the inevitable whoops consequence of wars orchestrated with great enthusiasm by our respectable government. What I'd call toxic patriotism is a tool, a carefully machine-tooled by the power that be for the speedy industrialization and the industrial mobilization for total war. Even the Romans worked out 2,000 years ago that the easiest way to rule, control, and generally subjugate a population is to divide it first. And patriotism is a pretty handy tool for that. Caesar did it to the Gauls. The British did it more or less everywhere they went. It's not a new trick, it's a good old trick that still works miraculously today. But I think there is something else going on, and that's what I want to get into today. The World Cup is in full swing as I speak, and there is no greater display of patriotism than the World Cup. Well, with perhaps one notable exception of war. For the longest time, I could not for the life of me understand the point of spectating sport. Playing sport is one thing. I understand the appeal and benefit of exercise and mild humiliation which is character building. But watching other people play sport and getting that excited about it, honestly... But then again, you could say the same thing about adult films, so perhaps I shouldn't throw stones. Anyway, I was so indifferent to sport in any shape or forms. Football, baseball, cricket, basketball, even sumo. And I actively despised the culture that grew up around football, in particular in Britain, an ugly carnival of the most vulgar, basest instinct on display. I wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. Then one day, Eureka! The penny dropped. The thunder of wisdom struck. Spectating sport becomes fun the moment you pick a side. Now, this is really crucial in spectating sport. In order to enjoy it, one has to take side. So long as you insist on rising above the idiocracy, on being rigorously and scrupulously fair to every human being on the planet, on striving to be wise, sagacious, well-informed, intelligent pacifist, you will never, ever get it. It will remain a closed book forever. So one day I decided to follow my patriotic instinct instead, with total disregard for whatever my intellect, such as it is, and my autonomous morality, if I ever possess one, had to say about it. And suddenly, my God, the World Cup became enormous fun. As I said before, we are mammals, and mammals are by definition territorial. I suspect our patriotism is rooted in exactly that. At least it's a major contributing factor. Then there's a question of testosterone, supposedly the hormone that makes us competitive, assertive, aggressive. The folk version of the story goes more testosterone, more muscles and body hair, and with it, aggression. Simple as that. Except... and I did actually check this rather than just making it up to sound clever, the science is nowhere near that tidy. Studies that directly inject men with testosterone in controlled trials mostly fail to produce more aggression at all. What testosterone reliably seems to chase is status, dominance, being the one who wins. Well, then it's kind of hard to draw a line where the sense of dominance and thirst for victory ends and the aggression begins. Either way, the combination of sense of dominance and mammal's territorial instinct looks like a perfect recipe for toxic patriotism to me. That drive of dominance and territorial instinct are what gets twisted into patriotism and, dare I say, into instinctive violence, which can be intoxicating. There are some genuinely disturbing and unsettling testimonies from honest patriotic war veterans who fought on the front line and risked their lives to serve the nation. Some of them confess that once you get past the initial terror, the actual business of combat, the killing, becomes something most of them could never openly admit to, except to say in the most candid moments that it was or became fun. Which eloquently explains why so many of us happily spend our evenings playing video games or watching films that are extremely violent and bloody. That instinct, scarily enough, is in all of us. More pronounced in men, thanks to testosterone. But women have that too. When I was a teenager, I was stupid enough to get into a tremendous row with a Danish woman, a thoroughly textbook Scandinavian, progressive, liberal, a committed feminist. And why not? I was aligned with the progressive left myself at the time, when I was a teenager, and to some extent I still am. Though my views and principles have since diversified to fit neatly in one set of ideology. Anyway, I told her one evening that we all have a bit of Adolf Hitler in us. I was simply paraphrasing what something John Lennon once said in an interview, that we all carry Hitler inside us, but we also carry love and peace, so why not let peace win for once? She did not take this well. I have absolutely no Adolf Hitler in me, not one bit. She screamed at me, well, rather like the Führer himself, although I thought it wisest not to share that observation at the time. I quickly recognized the argument was going nowhere productive and spent the rest of the evening keeping my filthy fascist mouth shut. I still stand by the idea though, even now. Call it your inner demon, your inner Hitler, whatever helps you sleep. It seems clear enough to me that this is the thing fueling toxic patriotism and everything that goes on to legitimize industrial-scale killing. However, pretending this violence-loving instinct simply does not exist strikes me as just as futile and just as unscientific as conversion therapy. The practice of attempting to alter someone's sexual orientation through psychological treatment, faith-based practices, or, in the good old days, chemical castration. As most of us know, conversion therapy is not supported by any credible science, and it operates on more or less the same frequency as a witch hunt. Deny the thing exists, then punish people for the thing that doesn't exist. So, the question remains, what do we actually do with our sense of patriotism? Before I elaborate my thoughts, I must make one thing perfectly clear. I'm not talking about the patriotism that's been purpose-designed, exaggerated, engineered, and quietly installed in our brains via school, media, and the usual channels. I mean something more innate, something more primitive. Our language is pretty close to our heart, and language is often more insightful and revealing than we give it credit for. The word patriotism, for example, comes directly from the ancient Greek for father, which is rather self-explanatory, but it also illustrates a point I'd make more broadly, that the root of a great deal of this is a chemical compound closely associated with masculinity, testosterone. Again, always testosterone. Here's the thing about our negative traits. They always are positive traits as well. Wearing a different coat, yin and yang, or two sides of one coin if you like. I would go so far as to say that the civilization as we know and enjoy would not have been built without testosterone. And yet, simultaneously, toxic patriotism fueled by the same chemical compound may be the single greatest threat to that civilization's continued existence. Testosterone, therefore, is the only substance in history to get full credit for the pyramid building and the blame for most wars. Given that we likely have this instinct wired in from birth, I'm increasingly inclined to think that we will never achieve stable, eternal peace. Not in my lifetime, possibly not ever. I don't think it's meant to be happening. This is more realism than pessimism, though, that the human race may simply be built to oscillate between war and peace forever, with no setting marked off. The minor issue here is this. Total war these days is one red button away. Very simple. Peace, by contrast, requires sustained, deliberate effort from everyone, indefinitely, with no single button to sort it out. We have to keep finding the balance. And finding that balance is more or less what life is about. As I said earlier, since the greatest minds from the dawn of civilization have tried to talk people out of their patriotic instinct and into some kind of unconditional, universal, cosmic love, and have, without exception, failed, including in their own ways, both John Lennon and Jesus Christ. This is more than a David and Goliath situation. David at least had a sling and a plan, whereas we have neither sling nor plan. Back to the World Cup, the most blatant display of toxic patriotism going. I could spend hours on how comprehensively corrupt FIFA is and how much the entire event benefits people whose moral compass gave up functioning decades ago. Well, that's a separate episode, possibly several. But maybe, and I stressed maybe, our hunting instinct, our fighting instinct, our toxic patriotism needs somewhere to go. Because it's there. There's no denying it. And maybe the World Cup, or the spectator sport of your choosing, is among the less destructive place to send it. I think of it as one way of keeping the toxic patriotism on the lead, not eliminating it, because it's there for a reason, and there is a good reason for it. Just walking it around the park a few times so it doesn't end up eating the furniture or attacking the guests. I don't know. I could be wrong. I rather suspect some of you will disagree with me like my sweet beloved Danish friend. Write your thoughts in the comment section below to enlighten me. On that note, this has been Post Whatever. If you found any of this remotely useful, which I strongly doubt, or at least mildly diverting, which is a marginally less remote possibility, do consider liking and subscribing. I'm Ken Nishikawa. Until next time, let your inner peace, not Hitler, win.